All right, so for those of you tuning in, you have been warned that in the next few segments, there will be talk of aliens. Okay, so angels. Who are they, and what do they have to do with us?
So, in their most basic form, they're depicted as having wings and being sent on errands by God, whether collecting the souls of the dead or spreading hope and inspiration. We even have instances of punishment being exacted by the hands of angels. Now, the real question is, where do we draw the line? Or better yet, how do we draw the line between the spiritual and the physical?
So I know you are ready with an answer, but before you share it, I would like to share my answer to see if maybe that aligns with what you have in mind. So, from what I understand, angels can move from a spiritual to a physical state depending on the task that they've been given. So, in my opinion, there wouldn't really be a line.
Mm. Well, in the Quran, the word jinn means spirit, whereas in the Bible, the word angel simply means messenger. So, if you're willing to take a broader view of this word, then, in theory, you can have both spiritual messengers as well as physical ones. A friend of mine in the clergy actually came up with a really interesting idea some time ago that sought to explain why we're so far removed from other celestial bodies. And what he theorized is that God may have very well performed the exact same experiment he did with Adam and Eve on countless other worlds in our universe. He could have set it up so that the ones who passed and avoided temptation would have access to the stars in later generations, becoming angels, while those who failed would be stuck on their home world until Judgment Day. Now, personally, I don't really adhere to this concept, but I'll admit that it's very intriguing to think about. I mean, especially when he started talking about how, even with our species sending radio waves racing through space at the speed of light, we'd still have trouble physically leaving our solar system.
Well, I didn't see that one coming. But I think it is an interesting concept, this idea that angels were created in such a way that is probably so far removed from any religious doctrine as we are from any celestial body.
Okay, so the other part of his theory deals with genetic information, in the sense that Adam and Eve corrupted their sequence when they disobeyed God, which influenced the rest of mankind from that day forward. This would explain everyone's predisposition for sin, just as people, family members may be predisposed to, say, cancer or mental disorders. Because at the end of the day, we're just all huge packets of information. Now, if another race out there among the stars managed to keep their genetic sequence from being corrupted, even for just a few generations, then who knows how their world would turn out.
Okay, so in comparison to our world, it'd likely be a paradise. I mean, there would be lower rates of violence and crime, which is a natural outcome in a situation among an alien race. But what would you say to someone who doesn't believe God exists or that it's all just aliens?
For those individuals, I'd ask them to look at things from the aliens' perspective. Now, there's no reason to believe other races in the universe don't have religions of their own, or that God hasn't already spread his message to those races. So, even if we were created by an alien race, that doesn't mean God wasn't ultimately responsible, because think about it, those aliens still had to come from somewhere. And it's mind-boggling to me that the same people who discount the existence of a supreme being are the same ones who seemingly give the universe consciousness. I mean, they talk about the universe doing this and that, but steadily draw the same conclusion through science that the Bible and the Quran have held for over 1,000 years.
So, why would supernatural beings capable of space travel bother with a tiny blue planet whose people can't seem to get it together?
Let me put it like this. If I'm flying through space and notice hundreds of thousands of people in distress, and I'm a Christian, I'm going to feel obligated to intervene, which this very well could have been the case with Noah and the ark. And if you look at this biblical event from a different perspective, everything does start to make sense, especially given the fact that Noah was told to collect two of every animal, but you don't hear any mention of food for these creatures. So this actually got me thinking of a scientific solution for such an extraordinary feat. And it's around this time I came across a documentary that mentioned a seed vault in the Arctic, a location whose sole purpose is to store seeds from various plants around the world in the event of a global catastrophe. Now, if a facility like this is meant to ensure we'll be able to survive, then what about an ark with alien technology? Specifically, alien tech that only requires 2 living cells from each major species group on the planet. See, not only is food for these creatures now no longer an issue, but once they're brought back, you can just let them go and they'll form new species based on their environment. An idea which, by the way, Charles Darwin believed from his time in the Galapagos Islands. This, in itself, reduces the overall number of animals needed on the ark. So instead of getting cells from a Siberian tiger and a Sumatran tiger, you just get 2 tiger cells in general and call it a day.
Sounds economical to me, especially if the fate of your planet rests on the ability of a ship to stay afloat. I mean, if we can answer the animal problem, is there enough water?
So the problem most people have with the idea of a global flood is they think the Earth doesn't contain enough water. They see the current water levels and look at the Antarctic and probably imagine something monumental happening if it all melted, but nothing biblical. And honestly, I don't blame anyone for this assumption because in our world today, seeing is believing. Fortunately, science continues to press forward, and as a result, we've discovered new information about our world pertaining to its oceans. Namely, we have vast water resources located hundreds of miles underground in the Earth's mantle. Enough water to supply our planet with several more oceans. Now, the issue is that this water is trapped within minerals due to the immense pressure and high temperatures. But thanks to tectonic movement, it's able to make a circuit from the surface towards the mantle and back again. For the sake of time, I won't go into detail about all the other information for religious accounts I've collected, but I will say a few pieces are pretty noteworthy.
Well, I feel confident in crossing that off my investigative checklist.